How important is it to accept your wins? Are you the type of person when something happens in your life that you actually succeeded at, and you just push it off like, oh, it's not a big deal? Or, other people are like, wow, that's so impressive. You're like, it's okay. It's okay. And not talking about the type of person who is doing it because they want really recognition, but the type of person who's doing it because like you really don't think it's such a big deal. And sometimes you see some people who have such high standards in their own personal lives that even if they do something that to other people like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, what ends up happening is that they don't necessarily want to see that success. They don't want to see what it really looks like from the outside, and they can't accept it. And I'm going to get a little personal today just because there's certain areas in my life that I think I do this a lot, and I don't think it's really great. And I'll just give you like an example. What triggered this idea is that I recently just came out with a new book. It's a Jewish book on famous Gemaras, famous stories in the Talmud. And it's like, okay, like that's like a pretty big deal, like I literally published a book, but like I'm not really feeling it for whatever reason, like other emotional things that are going on. Like I'm really not so excited about things regarding the book, not necessarily outside. Of course, there's always other emotional things going on as well. But regarding the book itself, there was like a lot of whatever stuff that happened with the book and this and that. And it's sort of like a bittersweet happy. It's sort of like being published, so now I have to like think about it anymore. But on the other hand, it's like freaking wrote a book, Bennett. Like that's awesome. And like I'm getting like calls from like friends and family, and like everyone's so excited. And I feel like I'm a little bit of like a Debbie Downer, just talking about the fact that like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's not a big deal, like no biggie. And number one, I think it's not appropriate. So one of the things I started doing is like I started just appreciating and thanking everybody, because when somebody's so excited about something for you and then you just show up like I have been, what ends up happening is that I don't appreciate that. Sometimes by accepting an appreciation, by accepting a congratulations, you're sort of giving back to the person. So even for me, if I'm not into it, regardless for that person, it could be worth it. So it's one of the things I'm working on currently while this book comes out and more people find out about it. But what's interesting is that what can I do to allow myself to accept the wins? And first, like, why is it important? And I think there's so many reasons why it's important. Number one, I think, and not just the book, but in general, just giving the book as an example. But I think one of the reasons why it's really important to accept the wins, if you're the type of person that it's really hard for, is number one, is it's really good for your self-esteem. Like our self-esteem is really important, and our self-esteem is that builds us up. And I know for me, I'm always constantly working on building my self-esteem and really becoming the type of person that I want to become, and really proud of myself. And moments like these where I end up pushing away something that I should generically like be proud of, what ends up happening, like I'm really just hurting myself. I'm not giving myself enough credit. Something I worked on for a couple of years. It took 4 years to publish the book. And what ends up happening is that we end up just hurting ourselves. So even if you want to say directly with the success that you've had, if you can start to apply it in a different area of your life, to say, hey, maybe I might not feel great over here, but by me accepting it, by me saying, hey, pat myself on the back, like you did a good job, not to make yourself arrogant. We're not talking about that type of, accepting your wins. That's the type of person where you have to look in the mirror. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the person who needs it, the person who's really struggling to really attain it. What ends up happening is that we can start to step into other areas of our life, and we can start to grow our self-esteem in other areas of our life. I think that is something that's really important. And sometimes we don't necessarily think about the repercussions of what it is we're doing or how it is that we're doing certain things. So when you do have an opportunity to be proud of yourself for something, it could be something big as writing a book or closing a massive deal, or it could be something as small as, I don't know, you did something that you're pretty proud of, like that nobody else knows. Understand that it's really important to just acknowledge the fact that, you know what, yeah, I did that. That's part of my character. And it's really put it in your blueprint about who it is that you are. Not that that's defining you, and not that that means technically anything at the end of the day, but regardless for your own self, because there's going to be times that there are going to be things that are going to be meaningful to you. There are going to be times where you're going to have to have that high self-esteem to put yourself out there. You're going to have times that you're going to be challenged, whether it's from life or from other people that are going to be pushing things against you, calling and saying things about you. And if you can start to have that regard for yourself, and that you believe in your own self-worth, that's going to be the thing that's going to be really beneficial. That's going to be the thing that you're going to be able to say, like, I don't really care what the other things is. I'm doing what I got to be doing. And so many times people don't realize it, but we've had that ability to just accept ourselves, and we won't. I think that could be something that could be really really good. And an example I think about in another area is, a couple of years ago, LeBron James won the NBA championship. But when he was playing in the championship, 2 players on the Warriors, I believe it was Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, maybe he's in Steph Curry. I'm not familiar. Really remember which 2, but 2 of the top players ended up getting injured, and then LeBron ended up winning. And you could look back at that and say, well, it's nice he won a championship, but he was playing against a team that wasn't really a good team. Or you can say, like, no, regardless, he was in a situation that he allowed himself to be there, and that allowed him to win a championship. Or when LeBron won the championship in the bubble during COVID. So it's like, okay, like, it's nice you won a championship, but you can't compare that championship to like another championship during like a normal regular NBA season. And I think if we could start to recognize it and start to see that and start to say, like, okay, like, yeah, you'll have the haters no matter what, but for him, like, he won a championship. Like, he should be proud of it. Like, he worked hard for that thing. And you're going to say that different things have different values. Okay, I think that's okay. But regardless, I think you could be proud of yourself that you did X, Y, and Z. And many times people don't give themselves the credit, or people talk themselves out of it. You know, LeBron maybe be like, that's not an actual thing. Like, it's not a big deal. And it's like, no, it's a big deal. Like, you deserve it, you earned it, and you put yourself in the situation that something like that happened. And we have to realize that for ourselves, it could be massive for our own self-esteem, for our own self-worth, just to be able to build ourselves up to have those things. It's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of win journals. So there's this journal that I have, dark green, not like my light green one that I have over here. But one of the things that I like doing is writing down the stuff that, you know, the wins I've had, whether it's something, a client win that is like, oh, this is why I do it. Or if it's just something I'm very proud of for myself personally that I did. I've placed a folder in my phone where I could just look at things, because there are going to be times that I'm going to get down. There are going to be times where I'm going to be questioning, like, hey, is this what I'm going to be doing? There are going to be times where I'm like, I don't really know what is going on over here. What's the impact that I'm trying to have? If you could just have those nuggets to remind yourself of the good times. Remind yourself of the things that, no, you know, I know it's hard right now, but this is just a down, and I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to do so much better. What ends up happening is we have that ability to step into these moments, and we can start to recognize ourselves for our own good, that, you know what, there's so much more out there. We have so much more of an availability to do so much more. That could be something that could be really beneficial for us. So regardless of whether you're the type of person who likes the wins, or regardless you're the type of person who doesn't like the wins, recognize that, you know, at a certain point, we have this ability to step into it. And if we could start to step into it, that could be something that could be really helpful. I think another area where it could be really helpful, just for your own sake, is the idea of imposter syndrome. You know, recently somebody reached out to me and they asked me this question about, okay, how do you supposed to deal with imposter syndrome at work? Or this specific person was asking it in work. And there's a frame when it comes to imposter syndrome. There's a way that people look at imposter syndrome. They look at those nerves, that feeling that you're getting inside, and they look at it as a negative thing. They're about to step into a meeting with like a bunch of CEOs of the company, or their boss, or whatever they're going to do, or you're just in a certain room with other people that you look up to. Then all of a sudden you ask yourself, like, what the heck am I doing here? Who am I to be the one to be able to put myself in this situation? Like, I am so not qualified. And that's a feeling that people get when they have this imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, I can't be teaching you how to do X, Y, and Z because I've only done X. Or, you know what, I can't do that because of that. And the reason I don't have enough degrees, I don't have enough experience, and all these things, and people are asking you for your help, or you have to step into it. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, one of the things that we have to start to realize is that we have to shift our frame. And I heard this from Jason Drees. Jason Drees is a mindset coach. He's all about alignment and manifestation. And he's seen crazy things happen in his own personal life. He talks about this idea of imposter syndrome in a very different way that I really never heard before. And I think it's so powerful, because if we could look at imposter syndrome as something that is going to be making us turn into something else, and that could be a game changer when it comes to imposter syndrome. So what I mean by that is, you have that feeling of not feeling enough. You have that feeling of, I don't really belong over here or doing this thing. What we have to do is we have to remind ourselves that moment is us really just growing. It's us expanding into this new role, into this new person. And throughout our lives, we're going to feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort isn't a bad thing. It's like when you first like buy a new shoe and it feels like really uncomfortable, you got to like break it in a little bit. And it's a similar feeling, because we're constantly looking to shift ourselves and shape ourselves. And if we can start to say, hey, you know what? I have this ability to become somebody new, to become the person in the room, then all of a sudden we have this this chance to step into it. And I think what ends up happening when we start to accept the wins of ourselves, we end up becoming a type of person who could do X, Y, and Z. We have proof that we've done X, Y, and Z. I now have proof that I'm an author 2 times over. Like, that's proof. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those that I had this belief that I wasn't a writer, and now I have 2 books. Like, that's ridiculous. And what I have to start to recognize for myself and for anybody else who's going through something like this is that we have this ability to step into it. So if you feel like an imposter, if you don't feel like you belong, recognize that all that really means is that you're expanding, you're becoming, your mind is your body's ahead and your mind is trying to catch up. To catch up with your body, and your mind's telling you, you don't belong. Where, oh my gosh, my reality is that I am in this room. And whichever level that you're going to grow, wherever level you're at, you're always going to feel imposter syndrome to the next level. So even if then you make it, then you're going to feel it to the next level. There's always going to be somebody richer than you. There's always going to be somebody healthier than you. There's always going to be somebody who has something more than you. And you're just going to feel like that imposter. And if we can start to say to ourselves, hey, it's not about that. I have the ability to step into it. And all of a sudden, things really start to shift. It's like that, that feeling when you're in 9th grade and you walk into high school and you're just like, this place is huge. I don't know anybody. I feel like a nobody. And then throughout the years, you get to your senior year, and all of a sudden you look back and you're like, I was a freshman. Like, I was like that. There's no way. And what's interesting is that we sort of proved ourselves this idea of growth. And the more we do it, then the more we become that person. And I think if we could, and this is the big thing about confidence in general, it's like if you could step into your confidence, if you could start to become more courageous, to take the action, you're going to become more confident and then look to step into the thing that you want to be doing. And I think that is so powerful that so many people don't realize that you have the ability to do. If we could start to say to ourselves, hey, you know what? What's going on here? How is it that I can set myself up in a proper way? Then all of a sudden, when you have a certain opportunity, you can look back. You can look back at those wins and be like, hey, you know what? I did X, Y, and Z. Like, I'll be fine. I'll be okay. Maybe I'm not ready for it. But guess what? Like, I do have experience. And instead of just poo-pooing it and telling yourself, you know what, I don't want to really like look at it as something good, we can accept it. I think one of the fears that people have when they don't accept it is that they know there's more to be done, or they know like they could have done a better job, or they know that it's not a really big deal because like they just did X, Y, and Z and it wasn't like hard for them. And I hear that. I relate to that in a sense. But to also recognize like, but you did do it. And a lot of people don't do it. Not to pat yourself on the back and to take your foot off the gas, but to understand that, okay, you know what? I accepted, maybe celebrate and keep moving forward. Because the successes that you have, the championships, those wins that you have, that is going to be the thing that brings you happiness. But the joy is the constant flow. So I think it's really important to get those dopes of happiness throughout. It's really important to be proud of yourself and acknowledge it. And sometimes in the coaching world, this is a big idea, like treating yourself when you hit a specific goal, because then it's going to start to breed more success. So it's like, give yourself, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to buy myself this prize that I wouldn't normally buy, but like, I know it's going to be something that's going to be worth it. And when you buy it, you reinforce yourself to be doing something that you want to be doing. And I think that's really important when it comes to whatever it is that we want to be doing. So next time you find yourself that you're like, you see yourself being successful and you end up, you know what, not really appreciating it, realize it. You have the ability to do so much. You have the ability to accept it. You have the ability to step into it. And it's only going to help you do more and accomplish more. Because if you keep yourself up, first of all, you're already going to get beat up from just like life and everything else going on. Like, you can't be beating yourself up. And if you're not giving yourself the credit that's due, and it's not forever, and it's not like we're saying we're the best thing since sliced bread, but to recognize, hey, you know what? I have the ability to step into it. I have the ability to make something of this opportunity. I did something. I'm proud of myself. I accept it. Now moving on. But to accept it is something that could be really, really beneficial to you, really beneficial to your own self-esteem, your self-worth. It's one of the things that, if you're interested, we have the 3 C's down below. Definitely take a look in the show notes down below. And that helps with like confidence. That helps with us being able to take action, to be able to set up our goals in a proper way, to really just do things that we want to be doing, to live the life that we want. Because if we start beating ourselves in one area of our life, what's going to happen is we're only going to see that in other areas of our life, maybe even more important areas. So be nice to yourself, be courteous to yourself, recognize that, you have such ability, you have the understanding of just accepting it And even if it's not for you, if you accept it for other people because like they're proud of it for you, like you don't want nobody to not be proud of you anymore. So recognize that, hey, you know what? I might have to put on a little bit of face, say thank you, appreciate it just a tad, but recognize we still have a lot more work to do. And there is so much more to be done. So wishing everybody so much luck on this journey. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to subscribe and sign up down below, and we'll follow us as